Hello, everyone. Welcome to Time to Come Alive. My name is Valerie Hope, and I'm a certified executive coach and a professional speaker. And part of this opportunity to join in with you every day is because every day, but every week, it's because it gives me an opportunity to really develop you as a leader in your life, as a leader in your organization, to become more conscious about yourself, to become more connected to other people, and ultimately to be more creative, to really be able to contribute at your highest level in your life. And that's what I'm really committed to. Before we get started today, there are a couple of requests that I have for you that I think would make this broadcast even more impactful. One request that I have, you can actually do right now. If you're watching this at this moment, whether you're watching it with us now live or you're watching it afterwards as a recording or listen to it on the podcast, please go to your social media and check in and say, listening to Time to Come Alive or participating in Time to Come Alive, so that you can really share with your friends and your peers and your colleagues what you're up to and how they can access this information. That's the first request. The second request, you don't need to do right now. Actually, I don't recommend it, primarily because it's going to take a little bit longer, a couple of minutes at least. And that is, if you go to www.bringjoytolife.com, you'll have the opportunity to take a quiz. And that quiz will let you see where you are in terms of accomplishing your goals and accomplishing your vision, and how far you've come and where the gaps are. And once you have that information, you'll also have an opportunity to prioritize how to fill the gaps, if there are any gaps, or how to continue to maximize the progress you've made thus far. It's a free quiz. Feel free to go to www.bringjoytolife.com and you take that. Then we can talk about the results afterwards. Okay, so as usual, you know that I like to start off our sessions by doing a little mindfulness exercise, just an opportunity to get grounded and centered in what we're going to be talking about for the day. So for everybody, just wherever you are, if you're sitting, if you're standing, if you're driving, walking someplace, as long as you're safe, of course, like I said, I've always said that, be safe, is I just want you to take a nice, deep, cleansing breath in through your nose and exhale through your mouth. I want you to do that a couple of times. It's very cathartic to be able to get enough oxygen into your body. So go ahead and take a couple more deep breaths. Okay, if you're able to, wherever you are, to close your eyes or soften your gaze, please do so. And if not, that's okay. This is really more about centering your mind. I want you to think about the people that you surround yourself with. Specifically, think of someone who you know has your back and that you know is headed in the same direction. You're aligned, you have a similar or the same goals, you're committed to the same thing. And that could be someone in your family, it might be someone in your work. It doesn't matter, but just really think of one person. See them in your mind's eye. Do you think about that relationship and how working or collaborating or partnering with that person, what does it make you feel? How does it make you feel? You might feel comforted. You might feel excited, inspired. Perhaps you just feel that you are safe. Right now, being on your own, you have someone that's there with you. You feel more courageous, perhaps bold. Think about the feeling it generates when you when you have that relationship in your mind. Now, I want you to think about the need that relationship fulfills. there's a purpose for having that relationship in your life. What need does it fulfill? Does it fulfill the need for safety? Does it fulfill the need for trust? Does it fulfill the need for creativity? Think of the need that relationship fulfills for you, that individual. Take a deep breath. As you exhale, send that thought, send that intention into that relationship. If you haven't already had that conversation with that person, it might be an opportunity for you to share how the relationship is impacting you emotionally and the need it fulfills. Next, I want you to think about perhaps someone that you're not necessarily that close to. Perhaps you don't know if you're aligned. That may have already come up. Someone in your circle who you work with or who you live with or who you spend time with, who you don't necessarily know whether or not they're aligned in your vision and your goals. Have that person in your mind's eye. How does that feel? You think about that person and not necessarily moving in that same direction. What's the feeling that it provokes? Does it provoke uncertainty? Might it provoke some fear, anxiety, impatience? And think of the feeling that you associate with that relationship, not being on the same page. Now think about what need would you like to have fulfilled by that relationship? What need would you like to have fulfilled by that relationship? Perhaps a need for clarity. Understand, where you are aligned and where you're not. Perhaps you have a need for understanding. Maybe the need is simply for companionship. You don't need to be aligned, but you just need to feel together. Consider that relationship, that relationship that's unfulfilled right at the moment. What is it that you need? How do you feel about it currently? And what need would have to be fulfilled in order for you to feel more positively about that? And last but not least, take another deep breath. Now think about you. Think about how you are partnered or have been requested to partner with others. Where would you align with someone that's on your team, of someone in your family who maybe currently doesn't experience your alignment? Think about who might need you on their side. Who might need you to hold their vision and their goals as strongly as they do. Imagine the feelings they might have about that. Do they feel safe? Do they feel trust? What needs might be fulfilled if and when you align with them? All right, take another deep breath. Good job. Well done. it's likely that reflecting on these different dynamics within those relationships made you think about some people or some situations that you may not have paid much attention to before or not have much clarity about. And if for some reason during this moment you didn't get the clarity that you wanted, feel free to go back and listen to this later. You might, as you continue to ponder upon it, you might notice something will come up for you. And the most important piece is, now that you've identified it, now that you become more conscious of those relationships and what's working, what's not working, what needs and what feelings you have and what needs they fulfill, it's an important opportunity to actually connect with the person. You want to connect with that individual and let them know. Let them know what is there, what's working, what's fulfilling. And let them know if it's not, this is the feeling it's generating, and this is the need that you would like to have fulfilled. And by having that level of openness, you might find that you can then create something really amazing, beautiful. I bring up this particular mindfulness exercise because by popular demand, a few weeks ago, we talked about partnerships and building stronger, more solid partnerships. What was fascinating is I'd shared that in the Harvard Business Review several years ago, I read an article about creating your personal board of directors. You may or may not have had an opportunity to look that up, but the premise is that our lives have an opportunity to be guided by a board, much like an organization does. You have several people that you connect with, and for whatever time frame they're in your life or engaged in what you're doing in your life, they bring certain skills, they bring abilities, they bring a certain network, perhaps perspective that you would not necessarily have on your own. Consider this is a continuation of that conversation. We also discussed talking about the types of relationships, the levels of relationships that you could build within this personal board of directors. And I mentioned Alison Armstrong, who really focuses on the differences and the ability for men and women to partner. That's her specialty. She breaks it down to 4 different models of relationship. And I really feel that those 4 models work not only in the dynamics between men and women, but also in other areas of our lives. So the 4 relationships that she mentions, the models, are the karmic model. That's the model where you and the other person are there to learn from one another. That's the purpose of that relationship, is to grow. The next model is the support model. That particular relationship is designed so that you are there to help that other person meet their needs, and vice versa. They're there to help you meet yours. That you're each other's supporter or cheerleader. Right? The next model is the companionship model. Now, that companionship model is really all about somebody that's there to spend time with you, someone there that you could vent to, perhaps someone that you just have as a person that you can connect with and feel emotionally supported. Perhaps you're not working in the same field, you're not doing the same things, but it's somebody that you can spend time with. Now, over the next few weeks, we'll talk more detail about those 3 relationship models. What I wanted to focus on today is the 4th model. That 4th model is called the legacy model. Now, the legacy model is described by people coming together to work and focus on a 3rd thing. So the focus isn't necessarily the relationship. The focus might be a vision or a goal that relationship is meant to create. Okay? Now, those individuals are really committed to building something beyond what that relationship per se would allow. And it may be long-term, it may be temporary. I think the most personal example might be in a relationship where there's a couple that's married, and their real focus is on the children and the legacy that they'll leave for their children, whether that is they're just raising them so that they're the best human beings possible. Perhaps the legacy might be a company or business that's created between those 2. Perhaps there's some sort of world or global issue that the two align with. That might be interesting. I had this conversation with my mother recently where she and my father have been divorced for many, many years, 20 some odd years. And really for both of them, their key success or achievement in their marriage was having my brothers and me. For them, that was really that was the hallmark of that relationship, the legacy that they wanted to. And because of that, they were so clear about it that they knew all their time, effort, resources were going to be really focused on making sure that we all had what we needed in growing up. So thanks, Mom and Dad. I think you guys did good. I don't know about my brother. Don't tell him I said that. No, all of us are fantastic as a result of the parents that we had. So I'm really grateful for that. When you think about the legacy model, and not necessarily with a family structure, but think about those people who you are working on a committee with, perhaps, whether that's a work committee or something in your community. They're individuals with whom you know are out to accomplish something. They're out to eradicate homelessness. They're out to ensure that the school system or the education system is providing exactly what the children need. They might be there because they're wanting to make sure that the church or the club really continues to grow and attract the right people so that it might continue on beyond your involvement. Those are all legacy relationships. That third area, that thing outside of the relationship that makes it so important is really what creates the opportunity for people to grow personally, but then also to contribute something to humanity or contribute something to their community or contribute something to their family that otherwise would not exist. Now, that doesn't always mean that the person or the group of people that you have that are fulfilling that legacy will always see eye to eye with you. In many cases, they may not. They may have the same goal and vision, but perhaps they differ on the way in which they want to go about it. Does that make sense? That reminds me of a story I heard recently. Tony Robbins, who is a professional speaker and coach as well, talked about how Mikhail Gorbachev and Ronald Reagan were at odds at the very beginning of their interactions. They both saw each other as supporting an evil agenda, to call it that. So Mikhail Gorbachev felt that capitalism was evil and really demonized America. And of course, Ronald Reagan was the representative for the US. So that was what he had in his mind and how he approached conversations. Ronald Reagan, same thing. He felt communism was the most evil thing. And Tony Robbins recounts that there was an opportunity for him to travel with Mikhail Gorbachev on one occasion. And he thought it would be, at this point, the Cold War had really started to take a big turn and started to dissolve. And he took that opportunity to speak with Gorbachev because he wanted to know, what was that moment? Like, what was that moment that changed everything? So when he asked that question, Mikhail started to laugh. I call him Mikhail like I know him. So Gorbachev began to laugh. And as he was laughing, he said, there was a moment where Reagan and I were just really, really going at it, just couldn't see eye to eye, just arguing. And all of a sudden, Reagan stands up, turns away, and starts to walk away from me. And he tells him that he got a few steps away, all of a sudden abruptly stopped. He turned back around, and he walked quickly with purpose back towards Gorbachev, stuck out his hand and said, "Hi, I'm Ron. Can I call you Mikhail? Let's start over." And in that moment, Gorbachev described how he felt like, this is somebody I can do business with. This is someone with whom I think I can have a conversation and figure out a way to make things work. And that charm and that levity that Reagan brought to that moment made it possible for them to then take it to the next level and to have the kind of conversations where they could create something really amazing. I really love that story because I love that moment we really look at that moment where we've been able to make a difference, where we've been able to shift our perspective, when we've been able to let go of something, especially when we've been making somebody wrong, right? We've been vilifying the person for something that we think might not be the best way to do it. And if you recall, we've said before in these sessions how the problem, the conflict doesn't really begin because we all have different needs. The conflict begins because of the strategy that we select, that we choose in order to fulfill the need. So really, when it comes down to it, if we really stopped and thought about how we feel about something, and then the need that we fulfill, the need that we would need, the need that we would like to have fulfilled, when we really stop and think about it, you'd have a lot more clarity with which to approach a conversation. Right? If your need is, oh, I have a need for safety, or I have a need for clarity, or I have a need for trust, it's a whole different level of conversation than saying, I have a need for this group and this meeting and this much money to be spent. Right? When we talk at the level of strategy, it's very hard to connect to the human behind the message. But consider in these relationships where you have a legacy that you'd like to protect or a legacy that you'd like to put in place, where you could shift how you communicate, and not only what you say, but also how you listen. Those are that example between Gorbachev and between Reagan was a prime example of someone that was willing to communicate in a different way with a whole different intention behind it, and someone that was willing to listen in a different way with a different intention behind it. And what that created was the opportunity for them to connect and to create something amazing. Something for all of us to think about. Really, the work today is to think about what you want to accomplish. What is that goal or that vision that you have in your heart that you'd like to see fulfilled? You'd like to see come to fruition? That's the first step. If we're not really clear on what it is that we want to accomplish, it's going to be very difficult to engage with other people who might also align and accomplish that with them. I think about when I was working with Hyatt, one of the projects that we took on often was helping groups within our hotels come together to identify ways in which they could better serve their customers or better execute the operational needs. And where at times it makes sense that, oh, everybody from the same department, this is the challenge or issue we're having, let's get the people from the department together and just kind of figure it out. What we learned is when we expanded the view of who had the same need. Now, mind you, perhaps the strategy was different, right? What the front office needs and what the coffee part in the lobby needed, they're different strategies. How they would go about fulfilling the needs for the customer or fulfilling the needs for the operation would look different. Yet when they talked about the need of having efficiency or about being effective or connecting with customers, the needs were exactly the same. What we found is by bringing together a group of people that represented all the areas of the hotel that had a similar need, the conversation shifted. Inevitably, you're able to then see opportunities that you wouldn't have seen before because, when you actually connect with people who have different perspectives or have a different level of resources, you have different results. You can create something bigger, better, more expansive, something that would apply and fulfill the needs of multiple people. So really consider, what is it that you're out to accomplish? More importantly, don't think of that thing that you want to accomplish as the strategy. I want to be able to check off the list, right? It's not just about, I want to be able to have this report, or I want to have this particular service, or I want to have this particular thing built. Really think about what's the need that you'd like to see fulfilled in all of this, and find others who have that similar need. And when you have that, you'll be able to create something well beyond your expectations. I have some homework for you. You know, we don't end these conversations without any homework. So, a few things. One is really keep in mind that your personal board of directors is really consciously created by you. Not everybody's going to be a part of it. Not everybody needs to, and nor do they have to stay for a long period of time. Okay. And I want you to really start to look at who you have in that circle. If you haven't been doing this already, if you're not doing it consciously, I invite you to find a time where you can sit down. You might just write a list. Okay? I invite you to write a list of, in this case, we're talking about the legacy members. Those are the people in your life who share the same values, who share the same goals, who share the same vision. Right? They're moving in the same direction that you are. Find those people. Also, like I said in the beginning, when we were doing our mindfulness exercise, find the people who are requesting that you align with them. Especially, it might be, the tip here might be to look at those relationships that might be a little contentious, right? Where you feel like you don't see eye to eye because perhaps you've been making them wrong and they've been making you wrong, a la Gorbachev and Reagan. Take a look at that and write down what the feeling, first of all, what's the feeling around the relationship and the need that it would be fulfilled by that relationship. So do that for both. I want to do that for those that are working for you, those relationships that are working for you, and then those that seem to be missing that particular quality. First step, to really get clear about who you have on your team, on your board, and what emotion is generated by that relationship and the need that that relationship fulfilled or you'd like to see fulfilled. Okay, that's the first one. And then second of all, when is appropriate, once you've done that particular part of the homework, have a conversation. Here's a part where you need to engage your courage. Have a conversation with those individuals to let them know, hey, this is how I feel. This is what I've been thinking about. And if they're not part of your board, this is an opportunity to invite them to be a part of your board, right? Say, I'd love to be able to connect with you. Or perhaps they're a person with whom you haven't seen eye to eye before, or you just get really clear, look, we're both here for the sake of this community. We are here for the good of our neighborhood. We're here for the good of this department. And my feelings right now have been frustration or sadness and disappointment about how things have been going and our lack of communication. And the need that I have is for transparency. I have a need for openness and creativity. How can we go about accomplishing that? It's just a small example of how you might be able to have that conversation. Okay, I think for today that's going to be enough homework for right now. So between now and our next call next week, so our next call is February 12th at 8:45 Central Time. I'd like for you to have spent some time thinking about those relationships. Like I said, writing down the feeling and the need that you have for them. In our next call on the 12th, we'll talk a little bit about we'll go back and talk a little bit about what impact that's had, what results you've seen, and we'll also move into one of the other models so that you can start to fill out and see where your board is working and where it might have some gaps. Hope that was helpful. All right, take a deep breath, everybody. Good. Okay, here's your call to action for today. Please, like I mentioned earlier at the top of the session, post on social media that you've been listening to Time to Come Alive, that you've been a part of Time to Come Alive, and you use the hashtag Time to Come Alive. That will also help. That way, you might be able to attract those people who have the vision of also continuing to become more conscious, connected, and creative by participating in this call. You might be able to engage them in conversation and partner with them. So please post that you're listening. You also share the link to the session. That way people can engage after the fact. And also think about taking that quiz, bringjoytolife.com, to give you an opportunity to see where you're headed and if there are any gaps that you need to now prioritize. And if not, where you might need to continue to amp up the progress you've made thus far. It's been a pleasure being with you today. Thank you so much for taking time to come alive. And I'm really, really excited to hear about what you've done to start to tighten up that board. Please feel free to email me. You can comment on my Facebook page, Connect to Joy, and tell us how things are going, what's working, what's not working. And if you have suggestions for other topics that you'd like to hear more about or explore, feel free to also message me via Connect to Joy on Facebook, or you can connect to me on LinkedIn, Valerie Hope, and look forward to communicating with you then. All right, have a wonderful, wonderful week, everybody. Take care.